going on, everyone? Welcome to Bending the Narrative here on the Aspect Network. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Batts, and joining me every week to discuss the latest and greatest in the world of Avatar is Kate Kronquist. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you so much. So, today we're learning more about Aang's origins with the episode The Storm. And to start this week, let's take a look at our Avatar map and track Team Avatar's journey. And we'll see, they didn't really go that far. We
Yeah,
haven't
I
moved
mean,
much.
it happens,
Again,
you know, and they also kind of went down. They went south a little bit again.
they kind of went south of it.
Which, but I
Two
feel like
steps
it's
ahead. No, it's one step forward, two steps
two
back.
steps back. Yeah, they'll get there eventually. Spoiler alert, they figure it out.
Spoiler alert. Duh.
They figure it out. But I mean, I feel like I can't blame him that much for this one because Aang's real worried about the storm, and
Yeah.
understandably
And
so.
because he has kind of trauma about that.
I mean, yeah, this episode literally, aside from being titled "The Storm," could just be like PTSD. The episode,
PTSD, the episode. Like, yeah,
like
this
that's
is
what that's what this is. Like,
this
come on.
is why our characters are the way they are.
Yeah.
By the
So I
way,
mean, they went. Had to do the thing. They went west. Had to go through all the directions in my
never
head
eat
again.
soggy waffles. Yeah.
So yeah, they went west a little bit. We're at a harbor town, which is nice. We're again on a coastline. Um,
hmm
yeah, I mean, they're slowly making their way north, which is good, even if they go, take some back steps sometimes. But it's cool. They're around some pretty big landmarks that'll eventually, come into play.
Come
But
back. It does come back later.
yeah, so we also, though, we're not going to cover it on the map really, but this episode does end up going between a couple different locations via flashbacks and stuff. So
hmm
that's cool to see too. Um,
Yeah, we'll see the Southern Air Temple, which we've been to,
mhm.
and then we'll see a bit of the Fire Nation, which we have not seen yet.
Yeah, which
And
we'll
we get a
save.
more. Yeah, we'll save.
We'll
We'll
save
get
the
there.
map stuff for when we get there eventually in some more meaty sections. But
Mhm.
yeah, so as Kate said, this week we're Braving the Storm with episode 11, directed by Lauren McMullen and written by Aaron Azaz. And if you're just joining us, we will be discussing the show in its totality. So be warned about spoilers as usual. And again,
Mhm.
if you're just joining us for the first time, go watch all the other episodes. They're great and
Yeah,
get caught up. Join us on this journey.
and
But yeah,
welcome. Hello.
so spoilers ahead, but Kate, let's start with you. What are your intro thoughts on this episode?
Oh my god, I love this episode. This is
Yeah.
this is the episode. This is the big
Hmm.
episode. This we learned so much in this episode. This is what makes us fall in love with Zuko. I feel like
Hmm.
this is finally the episode where we're like, oh my god, like, like, and I think we forget that. Like, while this is a very Aang centered episode where we learn
Hmm.
everything about Aang, we also learn about Zuko and why he's so important and what happens with him and his. We have sympathy for him. Um,
Yeah.
And we've been
It's a
questioning, like, while this whole series, we've been questioning, like, why have I been feeling sympathetic for this villain? He's a bad
mhm.
guy. But,
You really get the answers here. And it's also, I think
yes.
it's so fitting that we get so much about what I would argue are the two like primary like characters of the show. Like
Yes.
it's really it's easy to think of like Aang obviously is the main protagonist, right? But
hmm
and then it's
But
easy to think
Zuko
of
is more
like
of like a deuteragonist. Yeah, that's the word. Like a
that you want. Yeah.
second
um,
protagonist.
but that makes sense. Yeah. And it's easy to like point to the other gang members as like as them being the other main characters, but it really is like narratively and structurally like it's Zuko and Aang as the two
Yeah.
big ones. Like there's a reason that we're constantly cutting back and forth between Aang and Zuko and like following
hmm
them. And so yeah, we get a lot of those answers here. So the episode starts off, which I literally called it in my notes, just the trauma dream. Like
The trauma
he
dream.
like that's what's happening. Like he's got there's the music box playing in the background, and he's flying on
hmm
Appa, and
It's
Sokka's
so
flying
freaky, though.
along.
It is like eerie.
Yeah, it's a
And
very
I'm
like
like,
off-putting thing. I
I don't know
love
why it's so
Katara
off put by
flying on
this.
a giant Momo.
Yes.
Like that is incredible. I love that visual.
That's
But
so
then
dream.
yeah,
It like so happens
it
in
is.
dreams. Yeah.
And then we get the dark storm cloud ahead and the evil music hits and we get the voiceovers of like everyone saying like why did you disappear and stuff like this and
And
Aang
like,
being
we need you, Aang.
yeah
hmm
and like they need him and him being like I didn't mean to and feeling guilty in the dream and I love the visual whenever Gyatso appears in front of him and he tries to touch Gyatso and he just like
He
turns
just
into
turns to
dust.
dust.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
terrible.
wow.
Try
Like that whole
again.
dream sequence, I'm like, wow, everything in that has symbolism. Everything in that means something.
Mhm.
Everything in that is the embodiment
And
of his
again,
fears.
trauma dream. That's just what
Trauma
this
dream,
episode is, just a trauma. Like, come on. So we
which
get
is
that,
it
and that.
is like if anybody's have had stress dreams, like that's
Mhm.
exactly like how
Yeah,
I describe them. Like, this is what they are and what they feel like. I like, or like the actor's nightmare. I know a lot of actors have that nightmare where they're on the stage, they forget their lines, then they look down, they're naked, like,
yeah.
and
It's just all
it's
of the
so
worst things.
realistic. Yeah.
They do a great job of depicting that and depicting that mood, and it
Hmm.
also really like sets the obviously the tone and the stage for the entire episode.
Hmm.
And so we get also there's a super quick flash of Firelord Ozai with like a lightning strike.
Yes.
It's like
Right before he wakes up.
it's
Ah,
the shortest like insert. It's got to be like 2 frames, if that. Like it may be
not
just one,
even
but like
like one. Yeah.
it's so fast, but it's such a
It's like,
great just visual motif and just reminding the audience and also Aang that like, oh, this is the problem, the bad guy, like the
mhm.
main thing, which is great. Um,
It's like so freaky, that flash. I love that they do that. It's like his silhouette, oh, his like
mhm.
silhouette with fire and like a lightning bolt across it.
Yeah, it's just such great visual language and motifs, and just I love that. And we'll talk about it as we get into the episode, like how they showcase Ozai throughout this episode, and
They
how
kind of keep him hidden.
yeah, like I love how in restraint they are when it comes to him.
Yes.
But so we
Because that
get
is like that is a horror movie tactic a lot with
mhm,
like the monster or the main villain to not don't show your monster, don't
yeah,
reveal it. Like it's scarier when you don't know
to
what you're
imagine,
facing. It's
yeah.
scarier to imagine. And I do love that they
So
use that.
they use it so
Anyway.
well too.
Yeah.
uh, Aang wakes up startled, and Katara asks him if he's okay because he's had a lot of nightmares lately. And he's like, "No, it's fine." And we get the gang preparing to leave in the next day. I love that you also pointed this out in your notes, but because I
Yes.
made a note of the animation of Katara walking up Appa's tail to get on. It's so smooth. Like it's such
Like
a
it's so smooth. What is who
you,
decided that?
a great decision on whoever. Like mad props to whoever animated that thing because I literally
And
watched it and
if
I
you
was
don't
like,
remember this in the episode, listeners, Katara, like to mount on top of Appa, she walks up his tail and his tail moves up
he's
to
raising it
walk up.
to
He's
get
raising it
her
as she
to
walks up,
level. It's
like
so
an
great.
escalator. It's
It's
so
such a
great.
it's so smooth and it's just such a subtle
Yes.
thing and like I'm glad that we both were like, oh, that's awesome because
Yes. We're like, wait, what?
it's
That was random. What a
it's so
flex.
good though. Like it's just it goes so hard, honestly. Like
Like I can't
so we
imagine
get
how hard
that.
that was to animate that. But yeah.
Yeah, that I'm glad that's not my job.
Yeah.
So once again, they're out of food, so they need more food.
Hmm.
Sokka says that he had a dream that food ate people, which is just funny. Like,
So
of course, that
Sokka.
was what Sokka dreamed about.
Yeah.
And I love the visual that they use to do the transition of them seeing the like group of birds in the sky above them,
Yes.
and then when we cut, we see those same birds flying over Zuko's ship. And
And what
I
a neat way to
also
tell you that they're like close too.
yeah, like it works on multiple levels because it's telling you that they're close, but then it also shows that they're flying away from the storm because that's what birds do. And that's part of why Iroh is like, he's like, I smell a big storm, but Iroh also notices the birds and it's
The
like,
birds.
no, like we should go the other way.
I didn't even think about the birds that
th-
way. You're so right.
like the animals are smarter about this. There's a storm coming and everyone's like, no, it's
Hmm.
clear out here. It's like, "Ah, you idiots, do you not know anything about weather?"
And
Like,
I think was
come
the
on.
sky red when they woke up? Or am I
I don't think
because
so.
there
Because I
is
know,
like a sailor's phrase that's like red skies at night, sailors delight. Red skies in the morning, sailors be warned. And
oh,
that
yeah, that
means
makes
like if
sense.
there's red skies in the morning, that means most likely there
Yeah,
will be a storm.
and then also like whenever they're the gang whenever they're at the market and the pier and the fisherman that Sokka ends up going with, like he's arguing about
Hmm.
it being like a super clear day and there's like no wind, and I'm like, no wind is a sign that there's gonna be some bad stuff, like because it's
Yes.
like lit the calm before the
The calm
storm,
before the storm.
obviously, like is
Hmm.
all of that. um so yeah, but backing up a little bit, we cut to Zuko and Iroh on the ship, and Iroh's saying that they should change direction, and Zuko being like, no, and saying the safety of the crew doesn't matter. as there's a crew member behind him, and he's like, "All right, man, like,
He's like,
sure, like,
it's
thanks,
so
dude.
funny. But he just leans into it. He's like, no one life is greater
More
than the
important
or
than
more
getting the
important.
avatar."
Which is, I find that interesting because that is like, I know the Fire Nation takes a lot of inspiration from Japanese culture, but that
Hmm.
is such like a, like culture wise, that is, I think, a big thing in Japan, where it is the collective over
It's
the
the whole. It's not the
individual.
individual. Yeah,
Yeah.
that, that's a very like reinforced thing. And also we get early on in the episode Iroh trying to excuse Zuko's bad behavior, which will come back, and he continues to like do that and
Hmm.
elaborate more on that. Um, so we get back to the gang at the market and them trying to get
Hmm.
food. I love that Katara is like talking about the watermelon and is being picky about it, and is like, "Oh, I
It's
don't know
so
about
funny.
this."
She's like,
And it's
I don't
like,
know. It's kind of
I'm on her
related to
side,
choices.
honestly. I feel like it's probably
Yeah.
not a good watermelon. Like there's and she's trying to sell it pretty hard. Um,
Yeah.
which
And
is
I don't know
good.
much about watermelons. Those of you listening, we're always looking for some experts. You're a watermelon
Watermelon
expert.
experts tuning in.
Casually, a watermelon expert who's tuned into this podcast. Let us know.
Hmm. Yeah, and so this is where we get what I was talking about, where the woman says there's going to be a storm because her joints say so, and the
Hmm.
man denies it because it's clear outside. He's like, "Oh, whatever. I'll get someone else to like do this job and pay them double." And so Sokka takes the job with the fisherman. He's like, "I'll do it." And I love the
I
bit where
love the
he's like, "Plus, you
fisherman.
said you would be paying double," and he's like, "Who said that?" Like,
He's like, nobody said that, huh?
which is
I love
great.
this old man so much.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I also love that from this point until like pretty late in the episode, Sokka, like that's a plot with Sokka going and the fisherman just like gets dropped completely like until
Yeah.
the end whenever it needs to come back, which like makes sense as far as like we don't need to be with him on the boat as
Hmm.
they're like going out there and like preparing and stuff. Um, so it definitely like makes sense. And we then come back to Zuko on the ship and they see the storm
Hmm.
clouds and it's getting worse and the crew is like saying that his uncle was right, and Zuko's like, "You should show respect," and they're like going back and forth, and I love that his crew is like calling him out on him being a jerk because he is being a
Yeah.
jerk, like,
He is.
and
He's being a bratty teenager. And
mhm.
like I said too, when watching the live action, I realized that. I was like, oh God, imagine taking orders from a 16-year-old.
Yeah, and like
Like,
one
and I
that's a
think
spoiled prince is how you
spoiled
like that's
prince.
all you
Yeah.
know how to view him as, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not, you know, eh, they
They
don't.
don't know.
Yeah, they don't know yet, which
Yeah.
they'll get to it and they will
They'll
learn, but
get,
like
they will know.
but yeah, so he doesn't know. So that's his only like view of him. And so they almost come to blows, which is pretty sick. I love whenever they like lock arms and starts like heating
And
up for
his
a second.
hand starts steaming. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. But Iroh
Such a
eventually
great
steps
detail.
in and like convinces them to stop and eat, which is nice. Um, I
Hmm.
love when we cut back to in the market and stuff that Appa's just chilling
So
in
good.
like a
He's
boat.
chilling in the water like he's a boat. And like he
It's
doesn't need to chill in the water. Why
no, he
does
could
he
be
do
on land, but
that?
he's just like hanging out. He's like, this
He's
is
like,
easy.
yeah, he's
I'm
parked
just having a
there.
good time.
So cute.
So we get that. We get Aang being on the side of being worried about the storm because
Hmm.
obviously he's very traumatized from the storms, which
Yeah, he
have
doesn't want to have to
not
fly
to
Appa through that.
yeah, which I mean for him makes a lot of sense because obviously, his big traumatic experience with that. I'll say also just heavy relate like storms give me such severe anxiety. Like I do not like
Mm.
storms. They're not fun. I because they're just so they're so scary to me because like I can't control any of that and Mother Nature is
Yeah,
so
that's
powerful.
true.
Like
It really
I
is. Like I always get afraid during a storm that like a tree is gonna fall. Like because during I'm in New Jersey and there
mhm.
like I lived through Sandy. I was alive during Sandy.
Yeah,
Wasn't
yeah.
that bad. But like a tree fell next to my house, and if it was just a little bit to the other side, it would have like crushed my whole family. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Like ever since then, it's like storms are scary. That can knock
Yeah.
things over. I don't know what could happen.
No,
Can't control that.
I do not like. I'm literally at the like bottom of Tornado Alley, and like so we deal with tornadoes like
Uh-uh.
all the time.
Uh-uh.
And
I
it,
used to be terrified of tornadoes.
I'll hate it. Apparently, though, one of the funniest things I just slept through a tornado whenever I was like younger. Apparently, that literally was like on our street, just like I don't know, I was like 5 or 6 or something.
Oh my
My parents were like,
God.
yeah, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's cool. I'm glad that I was able to do that when I was younger. I'm petrified of
Yeah.
them now, like just
Oh
awake the whole
yeah.
time. But yeah, so heavy relate to being
Heavy
anxious about
relate.
storms and even more so because of his trauma that we'll get to as this episode unpacks.
Hmm.
Um, so we get that. we get the fisherman figuring out that Aang is the Avatar, and he's real pissed about it. He's like, "You turned your back on the world and all of this," and Katara
It's
leaves
wild.
to defend him, as Katara normally
Mhm.
does. I love the line that the fisherman says, where he's like, "I guess I must have imagined the last 100 years of
Yes.
war and
And he
suffering."
just hammers home the exact stress and anxiousness that Aang is feeling and like
Hmm.
what he's feeling it about.
Yeah, like he just hits without knowing it. Like this is exactly why Aang feels so bad. He's like, "I know,
Mhm.
dude. I'm sorry. Like I didn't mean for that to be a thing."
Yeah.
Um, and the storm starts getting closer and closer, and so Aang just straight up like that mixed with the dude
Mhm.
just yelling at him. He
And then
flies away.
Katara says it's not his fault he disappeared, right,
Hmm.
Aang? And he flies
And he's
away at
just
that because he's like,
he feels
"No,
like it
it is my
is.
fault."
Yeah,
But like they
and
don't know that. Like, and I think he thinks too, like, if she finds that out, will they change their minds about me? Will they think I'm a bad person? Will they
yeah,
think I'm like he's basically like it's my fault
they
that this
do.
war happened and there's these lives are destroyed.
They do such a good job of showing the like levels of anxiety and stress and like
Mhm.
responsibility that he's feeling without having to say a lot of it. Like obviously they do get into him like talking about it and saying it, but they show so much without having to say it as well. Like you're able to infer so much, and like f-
Again,
the showdown
showing,
tone.
not
Yeah, like
telling.
it just like you can just see it in his face and his body language and the mixture of what the other characters are saying and the situation that they're in, like the approaching storm. And again, the all of the moments that we've gotten before this too, they really hammer home like him continuing to feel bad about how he wasn't there for everyone, and like he
Mhm.
keeps on seeing things that he's like, well, if I could have been here I might have been able to do something, but I wasn't. And him
Yeah.
just like feeling terrible about that, and it just keeps getting worse and like keeps getting brought
And
up,
growing, yeah.
and like he keeps getting reminded about it. And so there's that, and Aang goes away and he flies into a cave, and
Mhm.
Katara will go with Appa to find him, and
Immediately
he's
chase him
sulking.
down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Katara starts a fire. And so then we get our flashback and we get Aang's backstory, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So we're back at the Southern Air
Very
Temple.
important. Yeah. I love the way they
Hmm.
draw it too. Like they how they
At like the
make you
vignette,
yeah, the
like the,
vignette, they make it
mhm.
foggy. Yeah.
It like feels
Vignette
different,
is
you
a
can
better
tell.
term for that. Yeah.
And so we get to the day he's talking about, the day the monks told him that he is the Avatar. He said that he was teaching
Mhm.
the other kids how to do the air scooter. I love that they just casually drop, because like one of the kids is like, "Where did you learn that?" And he's like, "Oh, I made it
Oh,
up."
I made it up. Like he's prolific. Like he is like a because it was known before he was the Avatar. Like he was also just a really good airbender, like a
Yeah,
natural. But I
like
think
the
that
yeah,
also is the fact that he's the Avatar, that it's so
yeah,
easy
but
for him
like
to pick up.
dude made up the air scooter thing. Like that's iconic, bro. Come
Like
on.
that's at 12 years old? That's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it's impressive, and the other kids couldn't master it, which is funny.
Yeah, they
Um,
couldn't do it at all.
So we get Gyonso telling him to come and talk to the other monks, and this is where the monks show that,
Mhm.
like, one, they tell him that normally they wouldn't tell him at 16, but there are troubling signs. There's storm clouds gathering, is what they say, which just more thematic reinforcement, which is great.
Yeah,
Like it's
of
just
like the
working on,
storm.
yeah, working on so many levels. Like love this
That's the
show,
name of the
even when they're
episode.
like even when they're not subtle, it works because of all the other ways that they are subtle.
Yes.
So like at times they can be in your face about it, and it's like good. It feels earned because of all the other things too,
Yeah,
which is
like I can't
great.
even make fun of it. Like it just
Yeah,
works.
because it's
Yeah.
just like it's the right kind of, they do it at the right moments and in the right ways. And
Mhm.
then this is where we get the like avatars picking out the toys that were the past avatars toys.
Yes.
Like they put the different toys in front of him, and they're like, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember like picking these out." And they're like, "Yeah, you picked them because they were from your like past lives." And he's like, "Well, I just thought they were like cool." And they're like, "Nah, it's like more than that." And I love
Yeah.
how they established that as a part of the process for picking out the avatars.
Which we
Like,
discussed in the first episode is a
mhm.
real uh method of finding who the new Dalai Lama is. Or
Yes, yeah, yeah.
yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I literally am in a class
If
right
I'm
now.
wrong, correct me, but yeah.
No, I believe, yeah, it is. That's how they, it's one of the ways they figure out the new Dalai Lama,
Mhm,
which is wild. Um, and so that's very clear inspiration for them, and like works especially for the monks because that's their whole thing.
mhm,
Um, and so that's also just such a cool way for them to try to figure out like who the next avatar would be. Like,
mhm.
because yeah, that would be a really big problem in this universe. Like if the avatar is reincarnating into someone else, it's like, well, you gotta find them. Like you have to
Well, you gotta,
figure
yeah,
that
you don't
out.
know who it's gonna be.
Yeah, so like it makes sense that they would try to devise a different or a way to do that. And so it's just
Mhm,
it's cool that they do that. Um they say that a war will come soon, so they need him, and that's why they're
mhm,
telling him that he's the avatar this early. Um and so we get that far into it, and then we cut to Zuko and on
mhm.
Zuko's ship. And we get to one, I think this is the first time we've seen the like real inside
Inside?
of the ship. Like I know we got Zuko's quarters whenever Aang was
Mhm.
like captured and stuff, but we haven't been like below decks, I don't think,
Yeah,
before.
with the engineers or anything.
Yeah, which like it's such a cool space, like it's such a cool
Yeah.
area. I really like
They
seeing
have a
it.
little
And then
like poker table or whatever where they all
yeah,
hang out on their
they're just
breaks.
hanging
Yeah.
and just talking shit.
It's
um,
so good.
which is great. And he's like, I'm tired of chasing his avatar, which is hilarious.
But
Um,
I do love how they talk shit about him. I'm like, you're beefing with a 16-year-old, bro. Like,
yeah, putting it in that context is hilarious, honestly. Um, so Iroh shows up, and they of course get like super like, they're like, oh no, like sorry, and he's like, no, it's fine, I get
mhm.
it. Like he's kind of a jerk sometimes. Um, and then
But
he
he's like,
comes
let
in
me
and
tell
is
you
like,
why.
yeah, he like wants to explain to them so that they get it. And so this
Mhm.
is when we flash to Zuko's backstory, which
Yeah.
is cool.
And I love
And
he starts with the line. He says, like, my nephew is a complicated man. Like he
yeah,
is. And he calls him a man. I just think that's
it's so
such a small
sweet.
thing, but
Yeah, he
it's a
doesn't call him a
small
complicated boy, like he says complicated
boy,
man, which is a big difference.
man.
Like that's such a,
Yeah.
like it carries so much more weight as opposed to like, and it just shows the level of respect that he has for him too.
Mm,
um so we see
much
Zuko as a
care.
much younger prince, and one, instantly we know that it's younger Zuko because he doesn't have a scar.
Yeah.
Zuko without a scar looks so weird, by the way.
Weird. Like
it
you're like, who is that?
it like it's insane how it doesn't, like it looks like him obviously, but it's insane how it makes
But
it
also
my brain
doesn't.
to be like, that's not Zuko. Like, that's
Yeah, I'm
not,
like, who is it? I don't know that
he
guy.
doesn't look like that. Like no, that's wrong.
Never seen that man in my life. What are you talking about?
um, so we get that, and he's trying to get into the war chamber, and the guards will not let him pass. But
Mhm.
Iroh reassures him that he will rule one day, or no, Iroh's trying to reassure him, and Zuko says if he's meant to rule one day, he's learned
Yes.
as much as he can. And Iroh's like,
Mhm.
okay. He's just like, you can go in, but you have to promise not to speak. Um, and so they do
One
end up
roll.
getting in there. Yeah, he said the one rule: shut your mouth. Basically, he says
Yeah,
it
the one
nicer,
rule, shut your mouth. But what
but
I
like,
do
don't
love
say
is that
anything.
um in the book, which we'll bring this up again, but the I love this war room. For some reason, the art of it, the
It's so
design of it,
sick.
it's so sick. And
Hmm.
it's so also like iconic in this series. We'll see coming up. Like this is the first time we see it, but this war room appears constantly throughout this series. And
Hmm.
it's a lot of important things happen in this room. And the room is inspired by Chinese and Egyptian architecture, which you
Yeah,
really see with the giant columns and the fire and the pointy
it's
things and
it's
the
so
crowning.
regal and imposing, and just
Yeah.
like like I love the just constant flame and like wall of fire in the
Yeah,
background that we have.
like what? And
It's
then just like
amazing.
I love these kind of rooms because of how I love how giant they are, how much space they take up, but it's unnecessary. Like you don't
Hmm.
need that much space,
It's
but
just
they can.
opulence for the
It's
sake of it.
opulence. They for the
Like
sake of it.
yeah, they don't need it. It's just this huge grand thing. It's like, oh yeah, because we can.
Mhm.
And like the table is really just like small and in the
It's
center,
just small, yeah.
like, and there's
And I
just
do
like
love they
50 feet on each side of them. Like,
yeah, like we don't need that. But
mhm.
I do love how too we see the map and it looks like I think it's a close up of like this this section of the map here.
Yeah, it's like a
I think
section. It's not the whole world. It's just
it's
like
not the whole
the,
world. Just
yeah,
the
what they're like.
section that they're talking about Bossing Say,
Hmm. Yeah, which is great.
right? Yeah.
Hmm. And we have the giant wall of fire with the Fire Lord. And again, as we were kind of like talking about a little bit earlier, Ozai is in this scene. We like
Mhm.
get some of Ozai, but he's just always in shadow. You never see him
Mm-hmm.
completely, which is amazing. He's just this looming presence.
Force. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I love that. And then we get them talking about the Earth Kingdom and using the 41st Division as a decoy because it's a bunch of new
Mm-hmm.
trainees. Because they're like one of the war counselors is like, how do you expect them to win? They're all like super green. They don't know what
Mm-hmm.
they're doing. And the guy's like, well, they're not supposed to win. Like that's the whole
Yeah, he's
point.
like, they're
Like,
bait.
yeah,
We're gonna plan a secret attack while they're luring them out.
yeah. And then so that's when Zuko stands up for them and says that they can't sacrifice an entire division like that. He's like, they're Fire Nation soldiers. Like we have to
He's like, they're
treat them.
devoted to the Fire Nation. They devoted their
Mhm.
lives to fighting for you. And
Like, how can we throw them out like this and just cast them away? And then we get Iroh
mhm,
saying that like for speaking out, there were dire consequences, and
mhm.
that leaves there for now. And then we
Yeah,
get back
we
to
come back
Aang.
to what those were.
It's so
Mhm.
good. This episode is a perfect encapsulation of like the back and forth with Aang and Zuko, and
Yes.
the fact that they
And it
like
does, like, it keeps it moving.
it's just
Mhm,
like a constant building of the tension from one to the other. And it's like,
mhm.
because like, can you imagine this episode being structured differently where we see like all of one track and then all of another? Like, it wouldn't
Like,
work.
I don't think it would work. I think it would be boring, and you'd almost get like, "Oh, now we have to have a whole
Well,
other one." Like, I
because
love
it
that
would,
they build both at the same time. That's
like, it
so,
would,
I don't know, like, efficient, I guess.
yeah, and it would feel like you have an ending in the middle of an episode to get to, and then an
Yes.
ending at the end of the episode, as opposed to like two
Mm.
endings that hit at the same time, which is what
Bars,
you
Alex.
really need.
Exactly.
Like the structure is so important in
Mhm.
things and in story, and like they do such a good job of that here.
Yeah.
Um, so we're back at Aang, and he's talking more about his past, and he was upset because being the Avatar changed everything, and like the kids won't play with him anymore because they're
Mhm.
like, well, it's kind of unfair, like you're the Avatar,
Like,
and he's
yeah.
like, hey, bro, nothing changed, like I'm still,
I'm still
but it's
me.
like
I
I
didn't
was
learn
always the
anything new.
Avatar, you know, like, but
Mhm.
it's the perception of him that has changed, and that's something that
Mhm.
he can't control, and like it can't go back to that, which is so sad. That's
Mm.
such a like
I
you
know.
feel for him so much. Um, so then we get him playing Pai Shao with Gyatso and then like joking around, and
Yeah, like
Monk comes
Gyatso
in.
tries to keep it light. Like he's constantly trying to keep it
Yeah,
upbeat
he's
for
like,
him.
I love that they keep that through line of him being like a goofy
Mhm.
guy, like from the
Yeah.
previous flashbacks that we'd seen of him too. It's so great. Um, a monk comes in and says that he needs to be training,
Mhm.
and Gyatso argues that I love that they drop in there like, as long as I'm his guardian, like I'll decide when Aang trains, and
Yes.
the fact that he's his guardian is super interesting.
I know, because
Like,
he do all airbenders have a guardian, I wonder, or
until
is it
they're
just
of
until
age, I guess. Like this goes back to what we
because
were
they don't
talking
have
about
parents? Yeah.
like a while ago. I don't even remember how many episodes ago, about
Mhm.
like the logistics of the like raising children in the air nomad stuff. And
Yes.
like I guess the kids get a specific guardian until they're a certain age, like maybe, or yeah, it might just be for the avatar. Like I don't know.
They might just
But
be for the Avatar, but, like, he's been his guardian the whole time. Like,
mhm,
he's been with Gyatso the whole time, so I wonder if they all get assigned to
a
a certain
guardian.
monk.
So maybe
But
they
also we
are
never
they do
see any
get,
of the female monks. I don't know how this works.
yeah, we do we really never see any female monks in the show?
I swear, I don't think we do. I'm gonna keep an eye out
Yeah, because I mean, in
from
the
now
flashback
on.
when they throw the cakes, they're definitely all dudes that they throw the
They're
cakes
all
onto.
dudes. Yeah.
Gyatso's a dude.
The only
There's
female monk we see ever is, I think,
there's
what's her name? What I always forget her name. Um, the other Avatar,
oh, Yang Chen.
Yangshan. Yes.
I mean, I guess that we see her statue. Do we see her like in like actual like living? Anyway, I know it'd be a flashback, but I don't.
Don't think. Yeah.
That's so interesting,
Oh,
actually.
she's on when he's on the lion turtle. I think in season 3, she talks to him.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
That's wild that I never really
Um,
thought about that
I
until that, because
know.
like obviously we're not gonna see any of them like living now because they're all dead.
Yeah,
But like,
because they're all dead. We see it in
but
Korra, but mhm.
yeah, that's wild. But yeah, I just think it's super interesting that they do drop into like, I'm his guardian, and
His
so I'll decide when.
guardian. Yeah,
Yeah, which is really
like, oh,
cool.
that's specific. Oh,
Hmm.
also, little fun fact: the monk that comes in, this very serious monk who's like he needs to be training. That's the
Hmm.
iconic James Hong who voices him. Who's literally in everything. You will hear his voice everywhere. I love
Yeah,
James Hong so much. He always plays the best characters. And
Big shout out.
I will always be able to pick out his voice.
I love how animated, obviously it's all animated, but I love the facial expression of him when it like when it does the close up of him, like the
He's just
reaction
like,
shot of him being like grumpy after Gyatso's like no, like it's such a like scorned like old man like
it
pissed off
is.
at like
And I
what's
like how
happening.
different they are. They're not the same. You were talking about this a couple episodes ago, like the
Hmm.
same face syndrome, or like
Yeah,
how sometimes artists can
fall into
draw
that.
the same face over and over again. But I love how different like they're all old
Yeah,
men, but they're all very different looking old men.
yeah, it's
Like,
great. It just
mhm.
really uh further emphasizes all their personality, and like you get so
Yes,
much in his like about who he is from just that like 30
just the
seconds.
design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
amazing.
the line. Yeah.
Kills it. So we get that, and then we go back to Iroh talking about Zuko. He
Mhm.
says that the Fire Lord got mad and that his challenge to the general was an act of complete disrespect. And
Mhm.
so Zuko knows that he's going to be in an Agni Kai, but Zuko thought that he was going to be facing the general that he disrespected.
Mhm.
But actually, he's facing his father because Ozai viewed him speaking out of turn in the war room as like a sign of further disrespect to the Fire Nation, like as a whole.
Yeah, like speaking out in his war room was
Yeah.
disrespect to the Fire Lord because it was the Fire Lord's war room.
Hmm.
Um,
And so,
which I thought it was interesting, this whole like how serious the level of like how serious disrespect is taken. And like
hmm,
that is a real thing again, like the inspiration from Japan,
yeah,
in Japanese culture too. It is taken very seriously.
yeah,
The culture of respect, and there's even different ways to speak their language and say every word that has a formal version, an informal
like,
version, like
or
different
like,
levels of respect based on if someone's older or younger. Sorry, what
yeah,
were
and
you
like what?
gonna say?
No, yeah, I was just gonna emphasize exactly that, like
Hmm.
based on relation or like
Hmm.
rank or whatever it will be, and like if you do speak out of turn or if you do whatever
Like it's
incorrectly, and like yeah, how
very
much
bad
like
and shameful.
honor is hinged on that, and like if you
Hmm.
dishonor your family in a way, or if you dishonor your like whatever it may be, like how big the consequences are for that. Big feels like a not great word to use for that, but like
Yeah.
how like the impact of those consequences and things.
Hmm.
Um, and so we learn that Zuko has to duel his own father. I love the animation when the like like robe thing that he's wearing falls like super slowly
Yes.
to like reveal Ozai. I say reveal, he's still in shadow, but
He's
like
still in shadow. Yeah.
seeing Ozai just in the distance and like the realization for Zuko that he's going to be
Mhm.
facing down his father in the Agni Kai is just insane. It's
Like, oh
heartbreaking.
my, and you see how big Ozai is and how small and innocent Zuko looks. Ah,
And all Zuko was doing was trying to
ah,
speak out for like the good of the Fire
I
Nation. He
know.
just
You see
like
how good he is.
he just shouldn't have said anything yet. Um, so that sequence, and also I love the lighting and just the overall like
Oh,
again
yeah.
design of like the arena. It's not a full arena, I guess, but like where they're
Like a
doing the Agni
dual,
Kai,
like
yeah,
the Agnikai dual arena, I
area.
guess.
Yeah, I
Area.
mean
Or
like,
like kind of like Coliseum, like it's,
mhm.
or like jousting, like those,
Yes, that's
reminds
a
me of
good
kind of one of those.
comparison because it's a it's a like line as opposed to like a
Yeah.
huge like Coliseum type thing, like a
Field.
big circle.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a more a narrow thing than that because of the way the Agnikais work. But the design there and all the architecture and the lighting is fantastic. So we get that, and
Yeah.
then we of course got back to Aang,
Hmm.
and just as he was starting to feel better, he overhears the monks arguing about how he should be
Mm.
raised, and Gyatso argues for him being raised as a normal boy, and the other monks say that that's counterintuitive to what he needs to be doing.
Yeah.
And Gyatso's like, we need to do what's best for him, while the other monks are arguing they need to do what's best for the world. And like,
Hmm.
really, like what's best for Aang would be best for the world
For the
because you want
world.
him to be in the best position that he possibly can be so that he can help everyone. And so it's
And
like,
that's what Gyatso's fighting for. Gyatso's like, no,
yeah,
you guys are. And it's very
you're,
interesting. I do love how this goes with, we were talking about the good and the bad and the bad and the good. And these monks are supposed to be like these wise sages
mhm.
and these men who know all. And we see them almost with the wrong mindset. We see monks in power or people in power with the wrong mindset and with the wrong ideas and
Mhm.
not
It's
listening to the person or hammering home their own ideas.
it's
It
them
goes back on that theme. I love that.
ironically being short-sighted kind of and like missing the forest for the
Mm.
trees, right? They're like thinking about the
Yes.
wrong thing. Like they're missing the
Hmm.
point a little bit. Like, and it's funny because obviously their heart's in the right place and they're like, well,
Hmm.
the world is going to be in danger, like he needs to be ready. But it's like, yeah, but you have to take a step back and like think about what you're proposing will do to like who you're trying to like essentially control, right? And like
Yeah.
they don't take that extra like empathetic step and think about it in that way. And it's like, ah, you guys were like so
You're like,
close,
it was
but
almost there,
like
like we were talking about with
yeah, like
the live
they
action.
were on the cusp, but then they just like thought about it in a slightly different way,
Yeah.
and it like has this cascading effect. And
Hmm.
so they decide that Aang and Gyatso will get separated, and that Aang will be sent away to the Eastern Air Temple to complete his training. And Aang overhears this,
And
which
it's
obviously is not good.
yeah, he doesn't want that to happen. That's the last thing he wants. Yeah, I
Hmm.
love this when they cut back to them in the cave. Aang has this angry outburst and he just
Hmm.
yells, like, how could they do that to me? They wanted to take away everything I knew and everyone I loved. And he like glows a little bit. Like the
Yeah.
air starts and his tattoos glow as he
Hmm.
yells this out. Um, and as he does that too, the he realizes he almost burns Katara. And so he
Yeah.
like immediately apologizes. But I just love what he says there that they wanted to take away everything I knew and everyone I loved. And like as a
Yeah.
kid,
Oh, you
that's
can't imagine. Like,
like, and that's exactly how I'd be like, that's exactly how I'd react. I'd be like, so you want to take away everything from me? You want me to take me away from my friends? Like,
this is
no,
not,
not
you're like,
seeing
no
the, yeah.
thanks, actually, like this
Mm.
would be the worst possible option, like this is not what I want. And he didn't ask for any of it, like it's not like he chose to be the avatar, right? And then so one, he's
Mm-hmm.
got this like huge responsibility, and then they want to like completely change everything about his world and like what he knows. Yeah, I do love that the how much the avatar state signals his like emotional state, right? Like how it's
Mm-hmm.
triggered by that, and like him like glowing in the rage and like getting close to that level of like outburst again. But it's good that he's
Mm-hmm.
able, again, growth in seeing him like control it more and like temper
Yeah,
it
he's
down
like,
here.
whoa.
He's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'll like pull back a second, and is good. Um, and Qatar says that he has a right to be angry, and
Mm-hmm.
then Aang knows that he's still like hiding more. And so we go back into the
Mm-hmm.
flashback, and Gyatso is going to Aang, but it's revealed that Aang has run away. Gyatso
At
finds a
that point,
note,
yeah.
yeah, that
The
Aang has
scroll,
saying
which I love
the
that it's a little
scroll,
scroll.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool, great detail.
Little
Saying that
detail.
he's like left, but it's so heartbreaking because Gyatso is like coming in saying like, Aang, I would never let them take you away, and
Oh,
Aang just never knows that. He just never, he goes away and doesn't, he's gone, and he doesn't get to talk to Gyatso ever
stop hammering
again.
that home. I'm gonna cry. It's like
Like
so precious.
it's just like Gyatso cared so much and was like, no, like I would
He
never let
doesn't
them do
know
that.
that.
And Aang doesn't get that closure. Like it's just not there.
Oh. Like, because
The
that's
more
in
I
the
say it, the
story, but
more
I
it
wonder
hurts.
if, like, I know the more you say it, the more I'm like, wait, that's no, that's so sad.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
Because I wonder why, if they put that in, because, like, Aang doesn't know about that, but he's the one telling this backstory.
It's just
But
to
I
hurt
wonder if
us.
that's speculation, but
It's just to hurt
it's just for
us.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It's
just
just
because
to hurt us. It's just to
it's
drive
because
it.
like they need to have a
Oh.
show that like Gyatso gets the note and he sees that like Aang's gone, and like that'll, we need that information to like know what's
Yeah.
happening. But
Hmm.
like yeah, it's just the fact that he doesn't know that is so terrible. It's the
And it's
most
so
sad.
sad. He
Um
loves him. He wanted to, he really, truly cared for him.
yeah, he wanted the best for Aang.
Hmm.
And so Aang has run away and he gets caught up in a storm.
Hmm.
And this is when Appa and Aang get caught in the storm. They get into the water, and this is where he falls into the avatar state and forms the ice ball around
Yeah.
them, and then stays, as we talked about in our last episode, swirling in energy instead of
Swirling
actually
in
just
energy.
being
Hmm.
frozen the whole time, which is super
Yeah.
interesting that he's just burning raw power for 100 years. Like,
Yeah. That's insane.
and the fact that he like also has to be doing that to keep himself and Appa alive
And
for a
Appa
hundred
alive.
years is like,
The way Appa stays alive is amazing. Like, does Appa kind of go into it with him, I
I
wonder?
yeah, I mean, I guess they just like hibernate together essentially,
Because he
like
is, I mean, he does mention like Appa is his spirit guide.
spirit
So, like,
guide.
they are
Yeah.
spiritually connected.
Hmm. And he notes that the
Mhm.
next thing he did was wake up in the iceberg. Like he literally just
Which I
like
love
goes
that
into the water.
we bring it back to episode one.
Yeah,
I love when they
it's
do that when they give you like, oh,
and this is
and we're
and
back.
see
Yeah.
and this is why no, I gotta save it. I gotta save it because we have a whole section where we talk about it. It's fine. We'll get there. So yeah, the next thing that he knows is he's waking up in the iceberg and he admits how guilty he feels for not being there when his own people needed his help and like when the world needed him. And
Mhm.
Katara emphasizes that like yeah, but he couldn't have known like what was going to happen. Like he's too
Yeah.
hard on himself and that like he probably just would have been killed if he had stayed, which like
And I
yeah,
like that
he
Katara makes
probably
that
would have.
point.
Like
Like, you
he
can't
couldn't
know. Like, there's so
yeah.
many things I feel like as a kid, too. Like, when you're a teenager, when you're that age and the age group that's watching this show, um, everything feels like the end of the world. Every decision, every
Hmm.
choice, every heartbreak, because you're so young and so new to the
You're
world, you don't,
like
you're like, every choice feels like, oh my God, I ruined
if I would
it.
have done
Everything's done. If
this.
I would have done this, if I made this decision, everything's ruined for me. Like, everything feels so big. And that's exactly what Aang is feeling. And I like that Katara makes that point where he's like, she's like, you're being too hard on yourself. Like, you don't know what would have happened if
Yeah.
you didn't go there. And you can't know. You,
And
like,
she
for all we know, it could have been worse. Like,
and she
this
hammers
could be better.
home the point that it's good that he's here now. Like that he gives people hope in the now
Yeah.
and they need him now. And so like it doesn't do again, bringing back one of the main themes. It
Yes.
doesn't do to
Dwelling on the
dwell on the
past.
past. Like you have to focus on your present and what you're doing now. Um, which is great. And
For
then
real,
so
like, I need to
like
hear this.
right.
I'm like,
And so
yeah.
we get that and cut back to Iroh and back to the flashback. And we see Prince Zuko seeing that it was his father in the arena
Oh.
and begging for mercy and refusing to fight,
Ah,
which is
another,
amazing.
like, heart
It's such
wrench. You're like,
a
he's
great
so,
character moment. Like him just being like, no, I'm sorry,
so
like
innocent.
please, no. And
Mhm.
like he won't fight him. We hear Ozai for the first time, which
Which
is
we all know, Mark Hamill,
terrifying. Oh yeah, the iconic Mark Hamill. Love to see it. The fact that he's Ozai is
insane.
insane.
He's so good.
He's
He's
perfect.
so he needs to be known more for his voice work because he also
Oh yeah.
voices the Joker in
Hmm.
the animated
So many
series
things.
and that animated
Batman
series,
the
but
animated
it's
series and like
Batman the animated series is it.
yeah,
Um,
like 80 other
and I've
projects.
and like a billion other projects, but his voice range is amazing. He does
Oh
these
yeah, it's
awesome
incredible.
voices. He's so
He's the
evil.
he's so good at just hamming it up. Like he's
Yes.
the best at it.
Oh.
I put down the quote from him. He goes, "You will learn respect and suffering will be your teacher." Get
Oh.
out of here,
Get
dude. Are you
out of
kidding me?
here.
Like, it's too good. It's just that's the ultimate
Like,
villain thing.
damn.
And that's can you imagine like hearing your father say that to you? Like,
Like, holy shit.
oh my god, that trauma. That's why this is just trauma the episode. Like
It's
it's
like
like
that is Ozai and those like influencer moms on Instagram that are getting arrested now. Like they're one and the
yeah,
same.
like it's just
What
it's
is it like Ruby Frank?
ridiculous.
She was doing that to her kids in the basement.
Just it's
Anyways,
unreal. He's like, here's
unreal.
some deep cuts for special stuff. um but yeah, like we hear
Duct
him,
taping him in
it's
the
amazing.
basement.
And again, he's
Anyways.
still just in shadow the whole time. We don't see him
Yes, we still
actually.
don't fully see him,
We just get his
which I
silhouette, even as
love.
he's approaching Zuko and the camera's on him, it's with him, but they choose to have that restraint and to not show him, which just makes
Like
it
they just dangle him. They just
he's
dangle him in front of the audience. They're like, "Hey, this is to come, by the
he's
way."
just this ominous figure of just evil and menace and just like the worst thing that you can
The
imagine.
worst
Like
thing, yeah. And they leave a lot to imagination, which I love because they're like, well, you have to keep watching to figure this out, which is
yeah,
so
and they're like,
great. Like
"Oh,
it
we
leaves,
know that you want to see him. You're not going
yeah,
to yet." Like, and it's oh, it's
genius.
work. It works. It's the perfect amount. We see Azula for the first time,
You fave.
who is love her so much. Shout
Point it
out
out. Point
Azula.
it out.
Like, come on, love her, and she's just absolutely loving this. Which also, I have seen people point out that they're like this is Iroh's like memory of the thing and so like that
Yeah.
could color it a little bit as far as like his perceptions of her but also from what we've
Oh,
seen of Azula she definitely loved this like
she definitely loved this. That's definitely, I mean, Ira
like
was right next to her. She was definitely doing that.
yeah which like well but also Iroh had his eyes closed he does say that he purposefully like
He
did not
does, looks
watch
away,
so
which I
like
love that they do not show that also. I know they
yeah
probably wouldn't have been able to, but I love that they do not show the act of
because
him
again,
getting burned.
it's like the imagination of it is so much worse than anything
Hmm.
they possibly could have animated in that moment. Like it hits so
Hmm.
much harder you seeing the reactions of everyone seeing this happen. Zhao is also
Yes.
there. Zhao's
Oh,
in the
the power
background.
in that.
Yeah,
Yes,
like we
Zhao
get
is
to see
there.
him. We see Azula, who we don't even. It's so wild thinking about the fact that we don't know. Like, if you're
We
seeing
don't
her
know
for the
who
first
that
time,
is.
you don't know that's Azula, even though she's also in the intro for every episode, which I love that
Yeah.
she's the like firebender that they show off for that. So cool. But yeah, then just like seating her in this flashback is so
Hmm.
smart and just so like it's great stuff. Because
It's so good.
if you don't know who she is, you're just like, "Oh, this she's insane. She's sitting there just like smiling
You're
so
like,
hard
who
at
is
this."
this girl? Yeah.
Like,
But I love it. Like it
what?
comes back and it's a reward for a watcher. Like if you rewatch it, you're like, oh my God, Easter. Like not necessarily an Easter egg, but it's like
It's just
it
smart
was here
storytelling.
since, yeah, they planned ahead. They knew
Hmm.
where they were going with this. They knew
It's
they
so
wanted to
good.
get to that. And
So
also at this moment, we hear a great scream by the voice actor of
hmm
Zuko, Dante Bosco.
crushes it.
It's so like,
Gut
it like
wrenching.
crushed my soul. I was like,
It's
oh,
like blood curdling. Just like the most
yeah.
like, man,
Like it's
I
just a
can't.
good agonizing
It's a
scream.
it's a good scream. It's a good scream.
And
Like,
then they do, oh wait, no, wait, this is later. This is later, this cut that they do.
but
We'll get
so
to that. They do a good cut,
we
yeah.
we get that, and then we have back to the present and the soldiers hearing this story and them admitting that they thought it was a training accident and that
Hmm.
like they didn't know,
Which I
right?
find interesting because it looks like a lot of people were invited to that Agni Kai,
Yes. But I mean, it makes sense that
but
not ever. It makes sense that the
yeah,
soldiers that he would give Zuko weren't high enough ranked to be
to
able
like
to
know
be,
about that.
yeah, which like that's cool. I think that's good.
Mhm.
Um, we're told that after the duel, Zuko was shown as shameful and weakness, and his weakness was refusing to fight. And so he's banished and sent to capture the Avatar, and that's the only way he can return and restore his honor. So,
Mhm.
like, we knew part of this already. We knew obviously that he was
Mhm.
banished and that he had to return or get the Avatar in order to return. But now we have
Mhm.
like the full
The
context of
full
things.
context,
Like, we
yeah.
really like with both Aang and Zuko, like we get the understanding of like where they both are as far as like their trauma and their backstories. Like
Yeah.
it all like clicks into place fully here, which is
It's so
amazing.
good. And then this this next scene is my
Hmm.
absolute favorite. This
It's
just like this, what is it? This whole section is like 30 seconds, but it's
yeah,
so
because
powerful.
so Iroh talks about the fact that the Avatar gives Zuko hope, and it cuts to Zuko like
Which I
meditating
love.
at his like altar, which is so cool that he does meditate. Like I think that's a great character thing that of him trying to
Yes.
like center himself. And yeah,
Mhm.
we get these intercuts, flashes of what seemed to be his childhood and like running in a field and
And
like his
like
face
children
being like
laughing.
yeah, like young and
Mhm.
happy and like oh, and that's cut with like his current self and his scarred face and scowl and like it's just such a
That cut is so good, where it's like his happy young self,
mhm,
and then cut
cut to
to
now
him with the
just
scar, the shaved head.
it's so good. It's so
It's so
powerful.
powerful. Oh, yeah,
It's just I
exactly.
mean that's what it is. Like it's a visceral, like
Mhm.
you get it. It's this an incredible imagery and visual and
Mhm.
showing pictures worth a thousand words, right? And
Yes.
it's just that hitting
Show,
like
don't tell.
the pacing of it, the like the insert cuts are done so incredibly well. It's just like it's all great.
Mhm.
It's
And I like that we see
top
before
tier.
this all happened, like, Zuko seemed like a happy kid.
Yeah,
Like, he was
he seems
genuinely like,
good. He's got a good head on his
yeah,
shoulders. Like the only reason he spoke up is because he was trying to do the right thing. Like,
yeah, like,
and
and he was
he's
just a
just
kid. Like, he was smiling. He was like, no, we should do the best thing. We're the Fire Nation. We're the best. Like,
mhm. And then
he was a kid.
he just has his entire worldview shattered by his father. Like, okay,
And
and
then like
is then
that's me after college. Him, it's like the happy and then the
the
current with the
hard cut.
scars and like the hard cut. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
freshman
just
year, senior
terrible.
year.
So we get the lightning striking the ship,
Hmm.
and we also get the
Oh,
lightning
which is a great
flashing.
transition.
Yeah, transitioning us back to the cave, and
Hmm.
the old lady from before shows up at the cave entrance thing, which that is a trek for her.
Yeah,
The
how did
fact
she get
that
up there?
she was trucking. She
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 was trucking.
she knew she needed to get somewhere to get help, and she was like, "I know there's a cave up there," and just hauled. I have to assume.
Like,
um,
yeah, they had to fly to
so
get up there.
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, there was a little path that you could see
Oh, true, yeah.
whenever Katara's flying on Appa to get there. And so she mentions that her husband is out on the ship with Sokka and that they haven't returned
Mhm.
yet. And so I love Aang being like, "We'll go," and Katara's like, "I'll go with you," and the lady being like, "I'll stay here." I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
me." Like, mood.
Me.
I also would be
But
staying
like,
in the
I'm
cave
staying
doing that.
here by this
Like,
warm fire.
no thanks. Y'all can go do that. And so we get Aang facing his fear, which is amazing. We
Mhm.
get we go back to Zuko's ship and things just being out of control as it's like hitting things. The helmsman is dangling from the tower, and
Mhm.
we get Zuko climbing up to save him, which is great. We get Iroh redirecting an actual bolt of lightning, which
What?
is insane.
We don't even know what we're seeing. This is the first
No,
I
yeah.
remember seeing this again. I was like, you can do that?
It's wild,
Huh?
and it's so great because it comes back later for more lightning stuff
Yeah.
whenever that gets introduced more. But like
Which I
that's
love
even
how
different
early
though,
they show it. Yeah.
because like I feel like it's
They
different.
planned
It's
on
a
it.
lesser feat later on because he's redirecting like smaller lightning stuff,
Mhm.
which we'll get there. But like
Mhm.
an actual lightning bolt from the sky, like
From the
just
sky?
just redirects it real quick is ludicrous, and it's just such a
Insane.
quick thing that they throw in there. I love though that they
That you're
play it
just like,
off as
huh?
like a gag thing because he's got all his hair
Yeah,
like
he's
cut
like
up and stuff and
shocked.
like
Yeah.
electrocuted, but like oh, it's unbelievable. And it's such, again, just smart like storytelling of them like putting
Mhm.
these seeds in there like super subtly. Like it's a super quick, it's a lightning strike moment, right? Like it
Mhm.
happens so fast, but like it'll come back into play later on. And that's
And
so
he's ready
smart.
for it. Yeah.
It's incredible. That's great. We get the helmsman falling and Zuko catching
Mhm.
him. Character development.
Big
He cares about his
twist.
crew now. So
Yeah.
great. We
Like he
get
really like he says all these things like and this is I feel like a young kid teenage boy thing where they say all these things. They're like, I don't care, I don't really like you, I don't,
mhm.
but like they do, they just
He
don't want to admit
does.
it. Like boys don't want to admit their feelings, and
Yeah.
this is again back to what a big thing
Zuko,
about this show is boys feel your feelings. Don't stop being afraid to, because his
yeah,
weakness was that the reason he's banished, his weakness is that he showed
his
kindness and he showed
feelings. Yeah.
emotions and he shared his feelings.
And it's that contrast that he has for the majority of the show in him struggling against what he thinks he needs to be and needs to do versus what he actually internally feels is his moral compass and the right thing to do. Like he's
Mhm.
constantly outwardly showing and trying to show like what he thinks he should be because of how his
Mhm.
father reacted and because of how the Fire Nation is, but like that's not really how he feels and what he wants to operate
Yeah.
as and like be as a person. And so he's like in that constant tension, and
Mhm.
you see his actions when the moments do come down to it and when things are on the line. You see him actually like you see his true self coming through in that, like Zuko saving the helmsman, like
Mhm.
that is Zuko. Him yelling at his crew and saying that he doesn't care about them is not actually like him. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's
what,
like he's acting how he thinks he should act,
yeah, exactly, it's the projection
which
that
is
he
why
thinks
he's not happy. Yeah.
should be there, exactly. It's incredible. So
Bars.
we get that. Yeah, we get cutting back to Aang and Katara looking for the ship. We have this huge
Mhm.
wave that Appa barely makes it over,
Mhm.
and then we get another one that Aang airbends through, which is such a sick visual of him
That's
just like
yeah, I love that he can do that.
airbending
Okay.
through a giant tidal wave. Like, all right, man.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so we get that. We have Zuko spotting them, but he decides to let it go and head to safer waters because he needs to get the ship and his crew to safety.
Character development.
Love it. Character growth.
Development.
It's so good.
Growth.
Within 20 minutes. Like, come on, like incredible. And so he says they need to head directly into the eye of the storm, which is incredible. It's so like, and
Mhm.
it gives us great visuals to end it, which we'll get there. We
Which
get
also the first time I saw this as a kid, this is like I think the first time I ever heard like you
at
head
the
into
eye of
the
the
eye of the
storm.
storm.
It's clear.
Yeah, and then it's
Yeah,
clear.
which is
That's just
wild.
stuck with me.
That's an
I
insane
remember
nature thing that is true.
yeah.
Like,
Like that
what?
is true. And that does occur in like a lot of movies that like head to the eye of the storm. And you're like, and I'm like, if I'm ever on a ship, I'm heading to the eye of the storm. I know that
Yeah,
much.
which is wild. We get back to Aang. They find the boat. I love
Mhm.
the bit of Sokka being like, "I'm too young to die," and the old man being like, "I'm not, but I still don't want to
I'm
die."
not, but I still don't want to.
Like
Such a good, that's actually genuinely like, I think my favorite line in the whole series. It's
so
so funny.
relatable. Like he's
He's
like, I'm
so
not done.
good.
Are you kidding me? He's like, I'm old, but no, like, come on.
It makes me think of what is in Forrest Gump? Lieutenant Dan when he's on the
Oh yeah,
when
yeah.
they're on the ship.
I
Yeah.
can't remember the line, but yeah, it's
He
those
says some
vibes for sure.
those vibes, yeah.
Um, we get the big mast on the ship falling over, and Aang using water bending to cut it in half,
Yes.
which is awesome. Like
Sick.
that's such a just like super fast thing that happens and is cool to see. Um,
Skills.
we
Quick
get
thinking.
Sokka and the old man onto Appa, and then they all get caught in a giant wave. Like they all end
Mhm.
up going under. But
Yeah.
this time, Aang is able to use the Avatar state and his powers to form the air
Mhm.
ball and the ice
With
ball or whatever.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, he controls it though. And so they're able to get out and they're able
What
to
if they
get
get
clear.
stuck for another 100 years and they're with their old
Rip.
man and
It'll be terrible.
you
This is like
imagine? That'd be
completely
crazy.
messes it up. That's the
Completely
what if
messes
episode.
everything up. That's the what if episode.
So they get through that. They actually fly over Zuko's ship to like get
Yes,
away. They like
straight over it.
fly out and get away, which is cool. Zuko's ship makes it to the Eye of the Storm. He's apologizing to Iroh. That's when the gang flies over and
He
like
apologized to Tyra.
yeah, would love to see it. And then Aang and Zuko make eye contact, which is just a great dramatic tension
Yeah.
moment. And it's
I
also
love Aang's face is literally he's like, oh.
he's like, oh
It's so
no, they're
cute.
like,
He's like,
Aang, you're
oh.
close. And it's just such a great exchange because it feels so powerful because of everything that we just saw and learned about these characters.
Yes.
Like there's so
That they're
much that we just
two sides of the same coin. Like they both have, not that they're two sides of the same coin, but they both have this
like
trauma, I guess is
yeah,
the
I again just
best word. I hate
trauma
to use
the
that word so
episode.
much, but yeah.
It is
Trauma the
though,
episode.
like that's what they have. And so we get that. We go back to the cave, and after the storm, the old man and his wife reunite. Um, we get him offering like fish as opposed to payment. I love the line that like fish ain't meat is the thing. He's like, it's
Yes.
not, which is like okay, I guess, man.
Reminds me of like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And she's like,
hmm
I don't eat meat. And she's like, it's not meat, it's lamb.
hmm It's hilarious.
So cute.
Um,
Good joke. Good joke.
Aang goes up to Katara, admits that she's right, and he's like, I'm here now and I'm going to make the most of it. Again, reinforcing the like letting go of the
He's
past,
done dwelling on the past.
being in the present, making
Period.
that like the most important thing. It's amazing. It stops raining, the skies are clear, and we end with a bit
Yeah,
of Appa
symbolic.
shaking off and the water
So
getting on
cute.
everyone, which is just always a great gag if you have an
Like a
animal
little
like shaking
dog.
off the
Yeah.
water. Yeah, like that's amazing. That's always great. So yeah, there's so much in this episode. So much happens.
So
It's a
much.
20-minute episode,
So
and like I feel like they pack like 80
this is the
minutes worth of stuff
most.
in here.
Yeah, we get you don't even realize how fast this episode goes by. And you're like, holy shit, this is the epitome of like, oh, we learned so much and I didn't even realize it. I didn't
Yeah.
realize how many little tidbits I was getting, how many little things I picked up, how much
hmm
this expanded our knowledge on this entire realm. Like it's so sick.
Yeah,
You
it's
call it a
incredible.
realm. That sounds more
I mean, it is a
fantasy.
realm.
It's a
It's
realm.
there. It's
Yeah.
the Avatar realm. That
The
works.
Avatar realm. Yeah, that works. But anyways, when we come back, we're going to talk more about this episode and how it compares to its live action counterpart. So we will be right back, guys.
Hi, I'm Alex. Enjoying the show on the Aspect Network? Then you should check out my show, Philosophy of X. Each week, I pair an X-Men character, story, or concept with a relevant philosophical topic and explore how the two relate to one another. Join me on my journey to examine the world of X-Men through philosophy. And now, back to the show.
All right, guys, welcome back to Bending the Narrative. So each week we dive into Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series. And while you can find our overall thoughts on the season in our first episode, throughout book one, we will be discussing in further detail how each episode compares to its live action counterpart. So, Alex, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm gonna break the mold. I know we normally spend a lot of this section complaining and saying that they made wrong decisions in the adaptation and that the choices weren't great, but I do want to highlight something that I think is a really impressive addition to the world that they did whenever they
So
were putting it.
refreshing.
Yeah, it's so good. We're breaking the mold here, but the 41st Division, Zuko's crew, them in the live action series making that the crew that he had spoken out about in the war room, that he needed them to be saved. Um, that's such a genius connection to make, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where whenever I was rewatching this episode, it's so obvious of a thing to do. Actually,
It is
like
like it's right there. It's written
it's
in. You just had to add like
a couple
it's a
lines.
great addition. And I wonder if that is the original creators. They were like, well, originally we were going to do this, but
I feel like they just somehow didn't see it, because like there's no way you think about that and then don't do it,
yeah.
like, but it's just one of those things that since someone obviously in the Netflix writers room like had the thought, and who knows, and maybe it was one of the things that
Mhm.
the original creators thought about before they departed the show, and they still
Yeah,
were able to
they
work on
had
it,
a note of it that you could use that.
but like it's just one of those things watching the animated episode now, it's like it like thinking about it and having like it's right there, like
It's
it's
right
so
there.
it's a really obvious thing that it's genuinely mind-blowing to me that it wasn't in the animated series, for like as smart as they consistently are with like the storytelling decisions and like
Hmm.
tying things in. But yeah, it's great to make the crew that he's been abusing and being mean to and like all this stuff, and like you have all the tension between the crew and Zuko and like them not respecting them, and like you get the payoff in the animated series of them like understanding Zuko's like the context of his burns and like why he's banished and everything like that, and like
Hmm.
you are able to get more respect from them for Zuko in the animated series by bridging that gap and like
Hmm.
them having that understanding. And so like you do still get the like earned respect from them towards Zuko in the animated show, but it really is just taken to like a whole new level in the live action one when you have that extra connection of
That
like
extra little connection,
we
yeah.
would be dead if it weren't for what he did, and like he has a
And that
permanent.
works for the live action
Yeah,
adaptation.
and
Like I can see why they didn't do that in the animated series. Like it's unnecessary. And
mhm,
like I do like all it needs, like the only, not that Zuko doesn't have disrespect for his crew, like he shows that outwardly, but he genuinely does deep down care. The crew just doesn't know that, and they
mhm,
only see what he's projecting. Um, but like in the animated show, it is the crew gains respect for Zuko, not Zuko gaining respect for the crew.
mhm.
Um, but I do like it is a good addition. And it's a good way to show it without having like the helmsman falling and Zuko saving him and Zuko being like, okay,
Yeah.
actually, I should like prioritize the safety of my crew and let them know like we shouldn't head into the storm.
You
Um,
just get that like baked
it's-
in with the fact that
yeah,
like
you just
he
get that
saved
is
them.
all baked in with the fact that he did save them long ago, and that's why he has that scar because of them, because he saved them.
Yeah.
Um,
It's such an interesting, like that's such a
it
great
is a good
thing.
connection.
And it also works because the crew is more prominent as people that you recognize in the live action show, because like
Hmm.
they have like they're real people as opposed to
They're
like
real
being
people as
just
opposed to
like
cartoons. Yeah.
yeah, like being random cartoon people in the background that like up until this episode, no single member of the crew stood out. Like besides Iroh, like they all just were pretty
Hmm.
generic, like soldiers. Like this episode is the first time that one of them really like
We had that like
has a
lieutenant, that one
personality.
little guy
Yeah,
stuck
like,
out.
and it's funny because you do not. He does have the sideburns similar to like who they
Yes,
gave to
Zhao
like
or anything. Hmm.
or to, and then also like the in the live action version, I don't can't remember the actor's name, but who plays the main guy that like really butts
Mm.
heads with Zuko in the live action thing. Like he has the same facial hair, so I have to assume that
Yes.
they definitely like
Yes.
took the same thing. But like
Hmm.
this is the first time in the animated show that any of them really has a personality and stands out as like an individual, as opposed to just like Zuko's crew that he's a jerk to.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, just like kind of like stormtroopers. Like they don't really have a personality.
yeah,
They're
like
not
they're there.
individuals. They're
Yeah.
there until
And so it
then.
does make sense to like further emphasize that in the live action show, because you are seeing them as people the whole time and they do like drama. And also I'm sure it goes hand in hand with the fact that like they had this revelation planned for later in the season. So obviously they're gonna make
Hmm.
the crew more like have more personality and be more involved and like really like drum up that tension between the two of them, between Zuko and his crew. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's just such a smart change to do, honestly.
That's
Like
like one of those changes where I'm like, that makes sense and it's
mhm.
good. Because some of the
See,
changes were like, that makes sense, but
eh.
eh.
It's like it's what I that's the point that I was hitting on previously about like smart adapt like changes to like in an adaptation that like make sense for the story and for the
Mhm.
characters, and that enhance all of the things that they should be enhancing, as
Yes.
opposed to like detracting. Like that's one of those things where like it is purely additive to the story and the characters, and it works very well in that regard. So yeah, I loved that. That's a great, like that's amazing. That's a
Mhm.
very cool thing. Definitely, I think by far my favorite change that
That
the
was a
live
good
action
change.
show
I did like
made.
that. That was I was like, "All right.
Impressive. Yeah, it's good.
Impressive." Like, you got me there. You got me there.
Hmm.
That's pretty good. I didn't mind, not that I loved it. I because obviously I like the way it's done in the original, but what I didn't think was absolutely horrible was, well, that's a harsh way of putting it, but um the what was his name? Leaves from the Vine.
Oh
Zuko with at the funeral for
yeah.
Iroh's
Oh,
son.
I love
Like
that
that's
part.
early on. We learned that early on that I mean we
Hmm.
do know that because at the end of this season we find that out.
Hmm.
Because as Zuko is leaving to go into the Northern Water Drive.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But Iroh says something about his son, and you
Yeah.
remind me of my dad's son. Like,
Hmm.
oh,
Yeah, no, I
ah,
do. I
spilling
did
that boy.
also love that moment in the live. That's the one moment in the live action series that got me to cry. I like
Yes.
that got when Zuko comes back and actually says what he feels and like sits down next to
Ah!
Iroh. I was like, oh, okay, you got me.
And that
Um,
version of Leaves from the Vine, and it like
uh,
harmonizes.
yeah, it was good. It
I
was real
cried.
good. The rest of the stuff though that's different in this episode, uh, um, the
Because
main
first of all,
thing.
we see Aang's backstory at the
Mhm,
start,
yeah.
which I know you were going to bring up,
Hmm.
that it worked so well in the animated series having that reveal later because it's like solving a puzzle and finding a clue and you get
Hmm.
that oh moment, that aha, it all connects,
Yeah.
and it brings you back to the first episode
It's
at
again
oh,
like it's, and I said this in the first episode, it's that you should start your story as close to the inciting incident as possible. The inciting incident of the story is not Aang going into the avatar state and the iceberg, it's him coming out of it. We don't need to spend
bars.
35 or 40 minutes prior to that. We don't need that information yet. It's not relevant. It's more
Exactly.
relevant and more impactful to get that information after we've spent time with him. We know who he is as a character. We understand that he's got problems. He's felt these burdens of responsibility. And so now then we get, like you were just saying, this puzzle piece that slots in and his whole character
Mhm.
coalesces. And you really understand why he is the way that he is in a much
Mhm.
bigger picture way than you did at the start. You don't need that. You don't need to front load the show with that. You should trust your
Yeah.
audience. The kids cartoon from 2005 did. Like
Yes.
you can trust them to just like be along for the ride because you started the story where you
And like
needed to start the story,
you
as opposed
want
to
the audience having questions that want to be
yeah.
answered. You want to leave your audience being like, "Oh, why are we here? Why is that? I want to stay and figure that out." Oh,
Hmm.
like I'm going to watch it. Like there's been some shows I've watched where I'm like, "This is horrible," but I just want to know why this is that way. Like I
And so you
just want
keep
to know the
watching.
answer to this question. So you keep watching.
Yeah,
That's
it's like
yes.
that's one of the crazy like storytelling 101 things that they don't employ in the Netflix show. Like there's so many 101 things that they do where it's super telegraphed, but the one of like keep a hook for your audience to keep watching is not there. Like they
Yeah,
just,
like what?
it's because they bake in the assumption that you're an Avatar fan, so you're gonna watch it. That's why you want to keep watching and get through the whole thing. Which
Yeah.
annoyingly, you got me. Like,
Like
like
yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Like
it doesn't hurt that we're doing a
mm,
podcast where we had to cover it, but like it's
yeah.
like it's just the thing of it's the importance of structuring your story in a way that makes sense for the characters and the reveals and the timing of those types of things.
Mhm.
And again, what you don't show is as important as what you do show, and when you show it is also equally as important. And that
Yeah.
again comes into the other main thing that's a big change in this episode compared to its live action thing that I don't like, which is the duel between Zuko and Ozai. One,
Yes.
we see Ozai constantly throughout the first season, like just
He
out there.
looks so I'm sorry. Love the actor though.
Oh,
Mm.
he's great.
Um ooh, he's so cute.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
but the way they show him so much, he becomes like a campy kid show villain.
Which is
Even though in the
ironic
kid show where he's a villain, he
and
doesn't come off
campy.
because
He
it
feels
can't
more
be
ominous. Like you have
ominous.
Mark Hamill hamming it up as the evil ruler of the world, essentially. and
Yeah.
he's less campy than the live
And
action
more
version.
realistic than this live action version feels like I'm watching
A
friggin'
caricature.
a caricature. I feel like I'm watching Looney Tunes. Or
Yeah. And
what's
it's
the show with the girl with the pink wig and the
uh
um oh my
mm,
god,
no,
but that show.
that one. I'm sure someone watching or listening
He's like the
knows.
fitness guy too. Oh my god.
No, it's gone. I have
I
no
really can't
idea.
think of that. But it was a kid show, but he seems like a villain from that. And
Yeah, and it just and so you're showing him the whole time. So you one don't get the what we spent like 15 minutes talking about how great it is that he's just in shadow the whole time and like super ominous and just this force as opposed to being like a person, right?
sorry,
You
it's
lose
Lazy
that.
Town.
Oh, that makes sense.
That was going to kill me. I'm sorry. I had to look that up. He looks like a Lazy Town villain.
That tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but like you lose the him being more than a person thing because we've spent the entire season with him.
Yes.
Like we see him so much. And so
And
you
also
lose that.
we don't see him do anything. He does not leave the confines of this castle.
Yeah.
It
And
doesn't really
then
affect anything besides.
also Zuko fights back in the live action show for
Which the reason
what?
he gets banned
It's because he didn't
is
fight back.
because he doesn't fight.
Like the Agni
And that's
Kai
made
is his punishment
clear.
for like disrespecting him, but like he's banished because he doesn't fight back in the Agni Kai. Like there's multiple things going on there. Like they're not one and the same. And
Hmm.
they have him fight back in the live action show because they need the action choreography. I feel like is the reason they have that happen.
Yeah, they're like, we
And
won't
it's like
fight.
again, it's just like
It's such a
doing
big
the
point that he doesn't fight back. He doesn't want to fight his father.
yeah, and
He's
it's
not a
them.
fighter. He's a pacifist.
Yeah, he really is like at heart. Like he doesn't want to like he wants to find the other solution, like the other way.
Hmm.
And it's again them doing the thing of like they're porting the thing over, they're adapting the thing, but they're missing the point of the thing.
Hmm.
Like you were so close, you had it, but then it's just you took a wrong turn.
Yeah.
Like
And it
and
emphasizes that like um thing with the Fire Nation that like since it's based off of, Japanese culture, that like of respect, that it's
mhm,
serious, and that
yeah,
disrespect and honor, like that hammers that home, that him doing something to disrespect and like even a small thing like not fighting back, that's
like that's a
weakness
huge
and
deal.
disrespect and dishonor,
Yeah.
and that's a huge deal, and that's why he gets banished.
They have the shot of Azula like loving what she's saying, so like I'll give him credit for that, I guess,
Yeah.
even though like but then we still lose the other impact though of being like who the hell is this, because we know exactly who this is. We spent like 5 episodes with her at this point already, like she's been in like all of
Yeah,
them,
she's been
so
in a
like
lot of things. Ooh,
like
sorry, my
you kind
AirPod
of
fell
lose
off.
that. But like it's just they missed it, they missed the point of what was
It
going
was
on there.
right, it was like right here, and they just did that.
They just they pulled like the gang flying over Zuko's ship at the end of the episode.
Literally. They're like,
They did
yeah.
that. Like, and it's like, all right, I mean, I guess. They also literally show him burning Zuko, right? Like I'm not just imagining that. Like they do have the I feel like they have the camera above Ozai's shoulder and he like goes in and burns his and like you're just watching him burn his face. Like
That's actually a good question. I think you see it just before it happens, but I don't think you
and
actually
then they
see
cut.
him.
It
And
might
then
be
they
one of those
cut.
things where like my brain is putting in that shot that might not have actually been there,
Yeah.
but it's still it's just a
I think they get
mishandling.
closer to it, definitely.
It's just again though it's just a mishandling of the whole situation and like seeing that and they were so close but
They were so
also
close,
a little far away.
but also way over
Oh
there.
yeah, like a little and it's just wild too because we don't like it's interesting because there's no direct live action like comparison for this episode because this
Yeah.
episode is just backstory stuff which they
In
slot into
throughout, they
different
scatter it
parts.
throughout. But I love
Yeah,
it all in one part. Like, I love that we get this. What,
you
episode
lose
11? 11 episodes in, we're getting backstory.
so halfway thugh the
Which
season because that is
halfway through the
22,
season.
right? Yeah.
So they've found a way to keep you hooked in. They found a way to
Mhm.
still keep you questioning and to establish things. So when you do see this backstory, you understand why everything matters and why everything hits hard. Like if you just see it straight up, you're like, you don't know why you need to know these things, or you don't know why you're being shown these things. You're
They just
like,
lose their
okay,
oomph.
that's
They lose the impact.
yeah. It's so perfect to show it this late in the series because then you're like, oh, that's why
Mhm.
he's that way. That's why he does this. That's why this person does this. And you're like, I put the
Yeah.
puzzle together. It's exciting. Like I
And
am
then
rewarded as a viewer. instead of being
Also,
punished.
like scattering it the way that they do, you lose what we spent a decent amount of time talking about of like the back and forth between seeing it with Zuko and Aang at the same time is
Yes,
so perfect. It's such
important.
a great way for them to combine that and show that and like reveal it like you were saying at the right time, but then like showing the two like primary characters of the show and like how they relate to each other and
Yeah.
their like the backstories at the same time is important because
And
that's when
how
the
they're like
audience needs it.
fated to
Yeah, like how
cross
intertwined they
paths.
are, and like Iroh
Hmm.
emphasizes like the Avatar gives Zuko hope, and so like having that contrast in the same episode in the same 20-minute span,
Yes.
as opposed to we get the Storm stuff at the very beginning of the show, and then the Zuko
Yeah.
stuff like later on. I don't remember exactly which episode it happens in, but
I
like
don't remember either. Yeah.
five or six, not five.
Don't make
Five's
me
a
go
spirit
back. Please
world,
don't make
so
me go
like
back.
I want to guess like six or seven probably is when it happens, but like
Hmm.
it's like that's so much distance. That's like hours of stuff happens in between
Yeah.
you seeing them, so you lose the impact of them being right next to each other and in that close proximity, which is again like structurally very important to the
Hmm.
reveals, and so that's just gone. So there's that.
It's
This is
just
why I
so
front loaded
sad.
with the thing that I liked.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That was, yeah, refreshing.
yeah,
Um, but
I
yeah,
know.
it's really sad. We do miss that. Like, I do love that Aang and Zuko are kind of not that they're parallels or foils, but they connect them so deeply in the show. Like they are fated to intertwine.
Hmm.
Their stories are, while not directly tied together, they still,
Are it's like they
yeah,
are the I mean, they're like
they're
the what's the
both
word I'm looking
important.
for? Yeah, they're both important and they're both the thing that will restore their respective nations to what they can be. Like
Yes.
Aang is the one who obviously
Mm-hmm.
brings back the airbenders in the Air Nation, and like
Mm-hmm.
Zuko is what the Fire Nation needs ultimately.
Needs like
And so
what
like
it should be after all of
yeah.
this.
And so you're seeing their like how they're able to be set on that path, why
Mm-hmm.
they like get there and the building blocks of that. And you get it after you spent a decent amount of time with them. And so you already
Yeah.
like know them in a pretty decent way, in a good way. But then like you were saying, the puzzle pieces just click into place
They
perfectly and
don't
you
click
really get
together.
and then it just sets up the full trajectory of like where they will go from here and like how they grow from
Yeah.
here. And like it's perfect
And
the
again,
way that
just
they do
like
it.
hammering home that one line, I want to talk about that more about Iroh saying that the Avatar gives Zuko hope.
Hmm.
Like that the Avatar is doing what he's supposed to be doing, even for his villain, his
Yes.
enemy per se, is like the Avatar is even
Inspired.
working, inspiring him and giving
Hmm.
him hope, and
And he doesn't even realize that that's what it is, that
doesn't
that's what's
even
happening.
realize. Yeah.
Like he doesn't view that really as hope. Like he does, he's like the Avatar is my one hope for like being able to
Hmm.
get, but like he doesn't mean it in
In
the same
yeah.
way. Like he doesn't mean it in the way that it
It's like,
actually
oh,
is
thank
for
God we
him.
have the Avatar. It's like, ah, this is my
He
ticket
views,
out.
yeah, he's like it's the means to an end as opposed to
Yeah.
like being the end. It's incredible.
Bars. All right. Anything else you want to say? Any last minute remarks you want to say about the live
Don't
action version?
think so. I think we
I think
covered
we
the
hit
main
all of our
things.
marks. Yeah. If
Yeah.
anybody else has anything to say on that, we'd love to hear about it.
Hmm.
This is this is a community. Let's all talk about this because yeah, it's frustrating.
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. All right. Well, thank you guys for all tuning into Bending the Narrative this week. Next week, we explore one of the greatest episodes of the entire series, The Blue Spirit, which we
Hmm.
all know and love. But before that, Alex, where can people find you online?
You can find me online at AP Batman with two T's.
And you can find me online, really only on Instagram at Kate the Official. Please be sure to subscribe here, though, at The Aspect on YouTube or any platform where podcasts are found. Please give us a like, leave a comment, turn on that bell for notifications. And you can also follow us on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok at The Aspect Co. And thank you guys so much for listening. Flameo Hot Man.